So the match finished. Crystal Palace 1, Forest 1. And I don't know why people are expecting a meltdown from me, because I was quite happy with the point. Welcome to my match reaction. Good morning, good evening, or good night. Hope you guys are doing well, and welcome to my match reaction for Palace 1, Forest 1. Coming up, I'm going to talk to you about why a point is very good at Palace. I'll talk you through some interesting scenarios. Who should Forest want to win out of this next huge game between Newcastle and Chelsea? And are we still in this top 5 race? If you're enjoying the content, please don't forget to hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed if you are new as well. If you want to grab me a coffee, shout out to all of you who are doing it. My caffeine levels are nicely met. Appreciate you all. Scan this QR code or click on the link that's pinned in the comments. Okay, so there's a lot to discuss here. Now, firstly, I don't know. There's loads of people who are like, meltdown. You know, you've bottled it now. You've done this now. No, like, I react how I feel. That's the thing with me and Forest games. Obviously, my reactions are more heated, like in the cold light of day when the final whistle goes, to what it is like 24 hours later or whatever. But when I feel a point is good enough, then I'm going to react to kind of that scenario. And that's what I feel about this game. I think a draw is a fair result. Rich has been telling me they should have won, probably talking about the Eze chance and what have you. But I just think if we don't give away a penalty, I didn't see Palace breaking us down. I didn't really see us breaking them down either. And a 0-0 is basically the same as a 1-0. But I don't think there's too many talking points from that game, apart from how good Anderson was in general, both sides of the pitch, in the attack, in the defense. For me, he was fantastic. Sangare, I don't care what people want to say. My thoughts about him, I thought he played well till he started to look tired. And in general, overall, going to Palace and getting a point, loads of teams struggled there. I know their home form hasn't been great of late, but it's a good ground. It's a tough ground to kind of go and get a result from. And Forest is still undefeated against Palace. I'm trying to think, as a kid, I don't remember us even losing, like back in the Frank Clark days when we were in there and what have you, or when we met them in the championship, etc. So overall, we have a good record against Palace, but I would have liked to win. There's no two ways about it. But the main thing I want to talk today to you guys about, and get your calculators out because this is going to get a little complicated, is the scenarios. And I've been saying for weeks, the biggest game coming up is going to be this Newcastle-Chelsea game, because the outcome of that dictates how many paths Forest currently have left to get into the top 5. So we're going to make a few assumptions here, and I'm not confident on this first assumption, by the way, but let's just grant it for now. Forest beat Leicester and Forest beat West Ham. If we can't get 6 points out of those 2 games, then quite frankly, we don't deserve to get Champions League, because Leicester are probably the worst team in the league. I think they're worse than Southampton, and West Ham have just been poo all season, be it under Lopetegui or be it under Harry Potter. They've been atrocious and their league position reflects it. So we can't ask for 2 better games in our next 2 fixtures. Palace for me was the hard one. Yes, I know we got Chelsea, but that may be irrelevant depending on certain outcomes. So let me run you through a couple of quick scenarios here. All right, so this is probably easier to do with the numbers in front of you, so that's why I've switched to this screen. But as you can see, currently you got Arsenal on 67, Man City on 64, Newcastle and Chelsea exactly the same on 63 with the same goal difference. Newcastle ahead on goals scored, and then us in 6th on 61. Now, I don't think Villa are out of it, by the way, but if Villa drop points, a draw or a loss to Bournemouth does put them out of it. For me, I just don't think that would mean they can get a max of 67 with their goal difference net 66. So let's just ignore Villa for a second. And Villa fans, I'm not putting you out of it. It's just, you'll see why. This is going to get a bit complicated. Now, I'm going to grant that Forest win their next 2 games. As I said, I'm not confident enough that it will happen, but we should be able to beat those 2 teams. That puts Forest on 67 points. Now, depending what happens between Newcastle and Chelsea, will determine our outs, if you like, kind of poker style outs. Now, the first scenario I'm going to give you is that if Newcastle beat Chelsea, which I think they are favourites to do, that puts them on 66 points. They then have Arsenal, and you would probably expect Arsenal to win that one depending on what they're doing in the Champions League. So that keeps them on 66 points, a point behind Forest, which means when it comes to the final day, Newcastle can overtake Forest if Forest lose or draw. Okay, because obviously from their, 67 points, that would move them to 70. Now, if Chelsea lose to Newcastle, obviously it keeps them on 63 points. They then have Manchester United at home, which puts them on 66. That leaves them 1 point behind Forest, which would mean that a draw or a win for Forest would be Champions League football. Again, I'm not counting Villa yet, just for the sake of maths, okay? So that's one scenario. But that does mean a final day shootout against Chelsea, because if Chelsea win and Newcastle beat Everton at home, that's it. Forest are out and will finish 6th. Now, the other scenario is if Chelsea beat Newcastle. Chelsea move on to 66 points. Okay. Now, with that, they then have Manchester United at home, who are terrible. So put Chelsea on 69 points. But that puts Newcastle on 63 points. If Newcastle don't beat Arsenal, so i.e. they only get to 64 points with a draw, that puts Forest in a position of only needing a draw against Chelsea to qualify. In fact, it puts the position that I've spoken about previously, that if Forest and Chelsea play out a draw in that final game of the season, they will both be guaranteed of qualification. So that game almost becomes null and void. Again, kind of not looking at what Villa are doing. So that's the other scenario. So what I'm saying here is a win either way is not bad for Forest. But actually, when you look at it, because Newcastle then have Arsenal, Chelsea beating Newcastle is probably, in my opinion, slightly better. I don't know if you guys would agree or not. Now, the worst case scenario is the draw. Because if they draw, they both go to 64 points. Now, Newcastle can then lose to Arsenal, keeping them on 64, with Forest being on 67, 3-point gap, which would mean a draw would get Forest over the line with Chelsea. It's kind of another handshake one if we do that. So it's very, very tight right now. But what I'm trying to tell you guys, and why I'm so calm about this situation, is that if Forest do the business in the next 2 games, depending on the outcome, specifically more so on Newcastle, Forest could be in a position where either the final game against Chelsea doesn't matter, or Forest and Chelsea can just pass the ball around the back for 90 minutes, play out the draw, and both will qualify. Now, again, this is kind of underwritten by the fact that Villa have to drop points against Bournemouth. Just to quickly add Villa in, because I expect Villa to win their last 2 games. It's Manchester United and Spurs who are probably meeting in the final of the Europa League. So that will put Villa in a position of somewhere, they're going to be either on 66 points if they lose to Bournemouth, which is them done. If they beat Bournemouth, the max they get is 69, but because of their goal difference, they'll be on 68. And that still plays into that scenario that I said to you, that if Forest and Chelsea go in, with Forest being on 67, a draw will be enough unless Villa absolutely tonk Manchester United and Spurs 3-0, 4-0. Then Forest are in a position again where the draw will suit us. So all these narratives that are being run are really, it's still in Forest's hands, is the bottom line. Now, there is this funny scenario that I just want to add. If Forest win and Liverpool beat Arsenal, and then Newcastle beat Arsenal, Arsenal will be on 67 points level with Forest. Arsenal could find themselves in trouble, but they have a get out of jail free card because they've got Southampton away on the last day of the season. That could play a scenario where if Forest beat Chelsea and some miracle Arsenal draw with Southampton, then Arsenal could find themselves out of the top 5. I really do not expect that scenario to play out. but it could. It could. So those are the key scenarios. What I'm trying to really get the message across to you guys about right now is that there are enough outs for Forest to get this done. The key today, or yesterday, should I say, was not to lose to Crystal Palace. Losing to Crystal Palace would have made everything a bit more of a stretch. If Newcastle and Chelsea don't draw at the weekend, Forest should find themselves back in the top 5 and looking like they're in control of things. But this is football. And what I'll say is anything could happen. Anything could happen. And it probably will. So don't take my scenario. Those are most of the scenarios, by the way, that are played out. But they're all underwritten by Forest winning the next 2 games. Are you confident enough in our boys that they can beat Leicester and West Ham? Surely they can. I don't know. Get your thoughts in. Which scenario do you think plays out of all of those? Let me know in the comments down below. If you haven't already, please don't forget to hit that like button. Make sure you've subscribed if you are new. We'll see you tonight on Grumpy Old Reds. I think it'll be about 7 o'clock, something like that. So have your notifications on. If you want to grab me a coffee, you can. If you want to see the player ratings, I'll leave it on the end screen for you as well. Have a good rest of your day. Come on, you Reds.